Okay, so this question got brought up in one of the net sessions. So how do we think void? One of the pushbacks that I got was that we can't think void, but we can think absence. So I'm going to use a couple examples here. I'm sort of drawing this back up where how do we think bookcase as such? In order for us to think bookcase, we need the absence of everything that is not bookcase. So the absence of what is not bookcase sort of helps us think what the presence of bookcase is, right? So then we proceed up, and we still stick with the same logic that absence is sort of not bookcase. And then we get this variable x to try to think void, and we get this conclusion of possibly that void is just total absence. And can we think total absence as such? What is ironic about saying that we can't think void is that first you have to, one, attempt to think void in understanding that void can't be thought. And once you decide that void can't be thought, you run into this sort of tautology of the fact that you decided that void can't be thought via its negative result. I cannot think void. But then we also get this weird thing where we cannot think choice either. We can only think choices, right? So void and choice result in a sort of ironic thing together where choices can be thought, but choice itself can't. When we think about how do we think of choice, we're always presented with choices. So that means void and choice have this relation of total absence, to which we then go back and say that there's presence and absence. So what does that mean? It means that choice is what decides in the end this distinction between presence and absence. And this goes back to it being the fundamental underlying thing or undergrid for us to think presence and absence. So in some sense, it's void, aka choice, that helps us think presence and absence, to which we work back up as like some sort of proof to understand that we can't think void. The reason why we can't think void is because we're already thinking with void as such. The void is sort of like the basis from which we pull thinking, into which we can think presence, absence, bookcase, not bookcase, not bookcase. What is total absence? How can we think total absence? We can only get this conclusion via the alternate, the exterior form, choice, versus the interior form, void. Because again, the ironic thing about choices is that we can only think choices, but not choice itself. Why is that? Which leads me to the tautology of void, where we say that we can't think void, but ironically, for you to say that we can't think void, it means that you decided, you made a choice that we could not think void, which means that by its very non-thinkability, thought has thought it. Meaning, like, the fact that we've concluded that void cannot be thought, it was thought that came to this conclusion. So meaning that void can be thought via its negative result, by us saying that it cannot be thought. And the same thing with choice, where choice itself cannot be thought because you're only ever presented with choices. We think choices, not choice as such. So this all collapses once again back into the original idea between presence and absence, because we're always thinking presence and absence, which allows us to think bookcase and not bookcase. But fundamentally, void and choice become almost the very zero. If I could draw it here, the very zero. Seems like the very zero here becomes the very zero to which allows us to think presence, absence, bookcase, so on. And then we start scaling up the ladder where it just collapses again back in itself. But yeah, hopefully that kind of all makes sense. Anyways, hope you guys take care. Bye.